Hi everyone, welcome to the Subways and Serpents How to Play tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll go through a shortened game of Subways and Serpents to give you an overall feel for what to expect from the game. So, let's get started and I'll explain things as we go along. As we established in the setup tutorial, Liz is going to go first, so let's start with her first turn. There are 3 phases to every turn: determining where the serpents will be placed, moving on foot, and finally, riding the rails. So let's get started with some snake placement. Liz is going to refer to grid A and roll the set of green and red dice. As you can see, she rolled a red 3 and a green 4, which means the next serpent nest is going to pop up at Weston Station. Now Liz will place a red serpent nest marker on Weston Station, and she'll place one of the white dice on Weston Station on the A grid, with 3 facing up. The white dice acts like a countdown timer, so that we know that within 3 turns, that nest will hatch and turn into a full-blown serpent. We'll get to that in 3 turns. The next phase is to move on foot. Each player will get the chance to move their crew 1 station in any direction in this phase, if they choose to do so. Let's see how it plays out. It's still Liz's turn, so she'll go first. As luck would have it, there's a serpent sitting only 1 station away from Liz's home base. She'll move 1 station west on foot and play her exterminator card to take out that serpent. Once that's done, she takes the serpent marker into her possession. Now, moving counterclockwise around the table, the other players get a chance to move their crew 1 station any direction. You may notice that Bill didn't move his crew marker. That's because he's waiting for the next subway train to come along and pick him up. And, conveniently enough, it's time for the 3rd phase of Liz's turn, riding the rails. In this phase, Liz is responsible for moving the subways, following the order set out on the train schedule on the board in the lower left. Each train moves 5 stations from its starting point, and can pick up serpents and crews alike. Here's an example of a serpent boarding a train using the Jane Express line. Now let's take a closer look at what just happened. Serpents will board any subway train that passes during the turn. And serpents also exit subways at the last transfer station the train passes on that turn. Following the train schedule, now this is going to continue moving the trains. The serpent heading east along the Shepherd line is going to exit the subway the last transfer station it passes. Just so happens that Bob's waiting at that transfer station to play his exterminator card. Mac's crew then heads west along the Eglinton line. 2 crews can't occupy the same station without breaking out into a rumble. To determine the outcome of the rumble, each player gets to roll as many dice as they still have crew members in their hand. As you can see, Mac has 4 members, whereas Liz only has 3, so he's got the upper hand. Let's see how the dice roll plays out. Liz rolled 8, but Mac rolled 11, and the higher number wins the rumble. As the winner of the rumble, Mac's crew gets to chase Liz's crew off to an adjacent station. In addition to chasing Liz's crew off, Mac gets to claim everything she has in her possession, whether it's serpents, serpent nests, or just cash. Liz may have lost her serpent token in the rumble, but she's not at a complete loss. She's going to play her negotiator card and claim everything she lost in that rumble right back. Now she has 1 less member in her crew, which puts her at a definite disadvantage for an upcoming rumble. Everything's been resolved on the Eglinton line, so now Liz is going to continue moving the subways, following the train schedule. Once all the trains have finished moving, that's the end of Liz's turn, and it will move on to Mac. The first phase of Mac's turn will be dealing with the serpents. He'll advance the countdown timer on grid A, and then roll for 2 new serpent nests on grid B. The reason we're rolling for 2 nests on grid B is because they're playing a 4-player game. The total number of players in the game determines how many serpents are rolled on each turn. You can refer to the Subways and Serpents manual for the exact details. Now that the serpent nests have been placed, Mac is going to move on to the 2nd phase, which is moving on foot. Mac still wants to get his hands on Liz's serpent token, and she's only 1 station away. So he's going to head over there on foot and initiate another rumble. Liz only has 2 crew members available for the rumble, whereas Mac still has all 4. So he's got the upper hand for this dice roll. Let's see how it plays out. The odds weren't in her favor, but Liz rolled higher than Mac, so she wins this rumble. Now she'll chase Mac's crew off to an adjacent station, but since Mac doesn't have anything in his possession, there's nothing for Liz's crew to claim. The on-foot phase continues, moving counterclockwise around the table. Bob is the only player interested in moving his crew, shifting them one station east along the Shepherd line. Now Mac will move on to the final phase of his turn, riding the rails. As Mac moves the first few subway trains along the lines, Bill, that's the player in the top left corner, hatches a clever idea. He's noticed that the Eglinton subway is scheduled to move west, which will take Liz first to the Serpent Nest at Weston, and then directly to the bank. Bill doesn't want to let Liz get too far ahead, so he's going to play his engineer card and reverse the direction that the Eglinton train will travel. Liz still has the opportunity to play her engineer card to reverse the Eglinton subway one more time before it starts up, but since her crew's already down to 2 members, she's going to play it safe and let that train go. Now Mac will continue moving the subways according to the train schedule. You'll notice that Bob's crew gets off at a transfer station, setting up his next move. The Serpent heading north on the University line also got off at the final transfer station, waiting for the next train to come along. Now it's Bob's turn. In the first phase, Bob will advance the Serpent Nest countdown timers on dice grids A and B, and then roll for a new Serpent Nest to be placed somewhere on grid C. Now, Bob will begin the moving on foot phase of his turn. He'll move one station east along the Shepherd line, heading for the bank. Bill is going to use his opportunity to move on foot to move one station south and clear out that Serpent Nest. Bill plays his Eradicator card to clear the nest from the tunnel and take it into his possession. The next step is to remove the countdown timer die from the dice grids so that a serpent doesn't hatch there by mistake later on. Continuing to move on foot counterclockwise around the table, Liz is going to make an attempt to run away from Mac, and Mac's going to give chase. Now we're on to the Ride the Rails phase of Bob's turn. You'll notice in this phase that a number of players have decided not to have their crews board trains. There's nothing wrong with that, you can pass up any train that comes along. Now we're on to Bill's turn. In the Serpent phase of this turn, you can see that the die on dice grid A is set to 1, which means that a new serpent is about to hatch from the nest. To hatch the serpent, remove the die from the dice grid. Then remove the appropriate Serpent Nest token from the game board and replace it with a serpent token. Now Bill's going to roll to replace the freshly removed Serpent Nest. Finally, Bill will advance the countdown timers on dice grids B and C. There's one more gameplay point I'd like to touch on before I take a break from my soothing narration. In this on-foot phase, you'll notice that Liz returns to her home base. Any crew members she may have used already are waiting for her at her home base, and rejoins her crew once she returns. Now that I've explained the basic gameplay mechanics, you should be able to follow along as the rest of the game unfolds. Remember, this is a shortened game. The players are only shooting to get $500 stashed in their home bases, as opposed to the usual $2,000. So, sit back, listen to some yakety sax, see how it all goes. So there you have it. Bob's our winner, and we're all winners in a way, because we all learned something about board game rules. Thanks for watching, everybody. Till next time.